Call the meeting to order. Okay, let's see. Kingston Springs Regional Planning Commission for September, this is right, October 10th. Okay, that's the middle deadline. So October 10th. All right, roll call of voting members. Keith Allgood, absent. Tony Campbell.
Here.
Tom Cullen.
Here.
Tony Gross.
Here.
Brian McCain is absent. Mike Patton, that's me. Glenn Remick.
Here.
Chuck Slater.
Here.
Bob Stoller.
Here.
Non-voting staff, Sharon Armstrong.
Here.
John Lawless.
Here.
And Martha Brooke Perry in for Jennifer No.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. And you have in front of you the August 8th meeting minutes.
Move to approve the August 8th minutes.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
we got a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, they're approved. And you also have today's Planning Commission meeting agenda in front of you. Got a motion?
Move. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the agenda's approved. Before I go further real quick, welcome to, I see a lot of people sitting out there, and I just want to ask before we start into the agenda, is there anybody here that had something they wanted to address the committee, the Planning Commission? I take that as a no. Okay, all right, good. All right, so old business, we have two items listed. The Sunoco on 121 Lavin Hills Road. Is there a project update today?
There is not. We're leaving it on the agenda because it's an open item,
Okay.
much as we have in the past. We're still waiting on the construction plans and the traffic study.
Okay, and I see Mr. Patel's here. Is there anything, Mr. Patel, that you had for us?
The only question I had was, and I think we keep going back and forth on this, about the traffic impact study.
Oh, are you talking about for the restaurant?
Correct. I mean, we're done with the convenience store and the gas station
Yeah,
side.
so you're talking about for the restaurant.
Correct. And I
Okay.
assume that's what it's on for. Am I right?
And have you've already communicated with staff about that?
As far as,
Any requirements for a traffic impact study?
Yes,
Okay.
that has been communicated to Mr. Patel. We've also provided him with the TPR from 2008, the Thornton's traffic study, the McPherson traffic study, and any other plans that we could find to assist him in securing
Okay.
this.
So,
That's where we are.
okay, so that's where we are then.
okay.
All right, so the next item, old business, Thornton's Group, notice of violation of the overnight parking issue. Is there any update on that, or is it just remaining an open item?
There is. In your packet tonight, it's a separate little packet. They have provided a somewhat small signage plan, but you can see the locations of the proposed signage. I have suggested that they make a couple of revisions, one to the size of the signs. These are very small. They're like 6 by 12 inches, almost impossible to see. I have requested that they make them at least 12 inches by 24 inches, post fewer of them in the locations that we have. As an update for the Planning Commission, there was a meeting with Thornton's to discuss this. Mr. Smuts attended that meeting. I received an email, which is also in your packet, where he was debating whether or not they had the authority to release the parking lot. I provided him with the Tennessee state legislation that gives them that authority and that autonomy. And I also provided him with Federal Highway Administration rules where they can police that, and expressed to him again that it's our intent to have no overnight parking posted. We also requested they update their site plan to include a fire lane. On 2 occasions that I personally visited the site, trucks were double parked and were blocking the actual entrance lane, which is an inhibitor to a fire truck or an ambulance or an emergency vehicle. So they are in the process of updating the site plan to stripe that lane, mark it as a fire lane, and to update their signage package. We should hear back from them in a couple of weeks. These are, because they're governmental signs, they're exempt from the standard sign ordinance because we're requiring them. We're requiring them as traffic control devices on that lot. So with your permission, we can have them update them to the ones that we have requested, stripe the lane, and staff can sign off on it if you're comfortable with that, with them posting the lot.
Well, I might say that I attended the meeting, and I think we got their attention. And
Yes, sir.
I really believe that they're gonna try to do everything that needs to get done.
So this can be addressed either way. We can, once they update the site plan to show the fire lane and update the size of the signage and the location of the signage, we can bring it back to the planning commission. If we take that tactic, the only impact to us is it won't get posted until after you review it. The signs won't be installed because you'll be in a position of reviewing it. Because this is a governmental sign, they're not requiring it, we are. It can be done with a staff review for the perimeters that were discussed in the meeting, increase the size of the signs, post them in the locations we need them to, strike the parking lot for the fire access lane, and that can be done with a staff review.
I did, on the drawing here that shows where the signs are, that's 11 signs.
Yes, sir, those are the signs that they proposed. We did not give them a
Oh, this is their
specific-
proposal.
Yes.
And you're saying we want less, or we can have less.
I would prefer that they had less signage and signage of a larger size. These are so small you can't read them when you're driving through the lot. They're literally 12 inches by 8 inches. So it's about this big. So if you're in a big rig and you're posting this, you're not going to be able to read it. I want them to be legible.
Just smaller than our folders.
Right, they're smaller than this
Well,
piece of
than
paper.
a sheet of paper, yeah.
So by the time you can see that sign, you're already parked. So I want them posted in a visible manner to address the issue.
Is there a maximum amount of trucks that could be parked back there at one time?
There are 10 truck parking spaces that were approved by the planning commission. Those parking spaces are designed and were approved for the truck driver to stop, go in the store, get what he needed, and go back out. The last morning that I was there, trucks were double row parked to the extent, along with campers and a number of other vehicles. The trucks that were parked in the legally designated parking spaces couldn't get out because they were being blocked in. The truck drivers who wanted fuel couldn't get to the fuel pumps because they had blocked those, and they blocked the path scale. So you had people blocked in, and then cars were going in front of the building and going into the truck lane, which was also blocked almost the entire lane by 2 trucks that were parked there. So we had 3 rows going around the side of the building. So,
Okay,
There is a maximum amount, there's 10, that is the maximum amount of trucks that should be parked in this lot?
10, unless you're fueling at the fuel bay, there should be no more than 10 trucks on that lot.
Who would enforce that?
Pardon?
Would the city enforce that, or would
You
they?
can. The only way that the city has a mechanism to enforce that is if we require the signage and it's posted as a traffic control device, which these are, and we're
Okay.
responding to traffic issues.
Okay.
Then it can be cited at that point. So I don't know that we'll ever fully eliminate. It would require someone to patrol that parking lot every hour, on the hour, all night long, establish when they got there and when they leave. But it will greatly reduce that. My concern at this point is the traffic issues that are being created on that lot early in the morning and late in the afternoon.
And it's their intention to tow these vehicles.
You have the tow trucks.
Have we found out, John, any more about enforcing no parking on ramps to the interstate?
Yes and no. We do believe that there is the option for us to enforce that parking. of
We have in
trucks
the
on ramps.
past, and that really needs to get done. I think.
okay, so Sharon, you're talking about increasing the size of these signs to what size?
I want them increased to 1 foot by 2 feet so that they
Okay.
can be read.
And do we have that in a written reply to Thornton's already?
I will furnish that to them. We're at the stage where
talking
you're going to give me
about it,
direction,
okay.
and I'm going to go back to them.
And is there, so if it moves from, I guess you said it's 6 by 12 right now, is the sizes?
They're 8 by 12 right now.
8 by 12, so
Increase.
if we go to 12 by 24, or something along that line, is there any reason to reduce the number of sign locations they have?
Well, at this point, it's really hard to tell from this very small plan that they were proposing 16 of these. They were like
Oh.
sticking them on top of every fence post
Okay,
around the building. They're not being located where they need to be located. They need to be located where the 10 parking spaces are. They need to be located adjacent to the fire lane. They need to be located in front of the cat scale so that they don't park there. And they're located by the signage. There are 4 proposed different signs. They need to be located in the appropriate place, so that needs to be tied to the site plan.
So you're saying, in addition to telling them 12 by 24, you also want to redesignate the locations?
That's correct. I think it's a moot point to post a sign that says don't block an intersection in front of the parking spaces.
Right.
You know, so I just want them in the appropriate place, and with Thornton's, as you know, every little detail has to be worked out and reduced to paper. So,
Okay. Any other questions for Sharon? So is this a motion?
it is. We're seeking direction. If you are comfortable with us requiring them to do these, the motion and the vote would be that they increase the size of the signs to 12 by 24, and that they post them in the appropriate location based on safety on the lot.
Well, who determines the appropriate location?
The appropriate location is determined relatively simply. If it's not a striped, marked parking space, and you're not fueling at a fuel pump, and you're not entering the cat scale, and you're not entering or leaving, no other place is appropriate for them to park, period.
So where do you put the sign to enforce that portion?
The signage for the side boundary fire lane parking is posted. There needs to be one when you enter the lot, so that you're notified. 2 at the curve location where they've been triple parking. And then the third one is right before you get to the parking space. Those were pre-designated in discussion with Thornton's quite some time ago. One needs to be posted at the center location of the parking spaces themselves so that they know they can't overnight park there. Then one needs to be posted where the fire lane is, so that they cannot park on that fire lane, because right now it's not designated as a fire lane.
So in your written...
So if they designate a fire lane, they would know not to park there. Because that's what a fire lane is for.
Yes, sir, but there are 2 locations where that's an issue. There is a set-aside parking space adjacent to the store where an ambulance can park or a fire truck can park. Also backing trucks across the lane and into that space as well. So we'll post that on a sign for that reserved spot for emergency response. They're a gasoline station. They have to have an emergency
I would
response.
suggest that we get a larger map and have the locations that you're indicating on that map so that we can look at it and see what the hell we're talking about.
We can do that. That's the question that I posed to the planning commission. Do you wish to see an identified site plan before you vote to require it done?
I would, yeah.
So that would be at the next meeting?
Pardon?
That would be our next meeting?
Yes, sir. That would be your next meeting, which means that they will not be posted after the planning commission meets.
So that would delay the whole process.
Yeah. Is there a way to do that between the meetings with email? Is there an accepted way to do that?
You could make a motion to require the size of the sign to be enlarged, and based upon what Armstrong's telling you tonight, you could make a motion to include that they be posted in accordance with her recommendations.
Would you have to see your recommendations, or would you?
Yes, I would.
Okay. So, all right, so why don't we
They delay it too much, because I mean that place, I came through there at midnight one night. It's a circus.
So let's make a...
It's improved a lot.
Has it? Yeah. I mean, if anybody had a health issue or something, they would just die before anyone could get to them.
So
It's a very dangerous problem.
let's make a motion and take a vote to see where we are on it. So
Mike, I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay. So Bob's recusing himself. All right.
Motion to make the signs 12 by 24 and to move forward with Ms. Armstrong's recommendation.
We shall
Probably do a roll call vote.
Post them in accordance with her recommendation.
And require them to post them in regards to Sharon's recommendation.
Okay. Which will be written recommendation, okay?
As always.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
Second.
Do we have any more discussion?
I would change the wording a little bit, at least 12 by 24.
Yes, sir.
They could go larger.
At least 12 by 24.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Just as, well, I know Bob's recused himself from voting, but just from your expertise with dealing with trucks and visibility and signs, what are your thoughts on sizes?
Are they paying any
Probably
attention?
16 by 24.
16 by 24?
Yeah. Do they pay attention?
No.
When they want to.
okay. So, we'll take a roll call vote. I'll call your name and just tell me yea or nay. So, Bob Stoller, you're recusing yourself. Okay. Tom?
A,
Okay, that's a yes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
A-Y-E, yes.
Chuck?
Nay, N-A-Y.
Okay, thanks. Tony Campbell?
Aye.
Okay.
Yes.
Tony Gross?
Yes.
Okay. Glenn?
Yes.
Okay, and I am a yes. Okay, so there's the vote.
Sorry, John.
thank you, sir.
You don't lose very often.
Okay. New business, we have a development discussion on the McPherson property. Do you want to start that off?
Yes, sir. I met with the contractor, Mr. Luna, on the site this week. We also received a bid for the independent engineering review. It is excessively expensive. What we have asked for is 2 places to be core drilled and sampled. One, to make sure it's compacted properly on phase 2, and second, to make sure there's no unsuitable fill. I had contacted previously, probably 3 or 4 months ago, a gentleman who was on the verge of retiring. He retired in between, so we did not get him in time to get that done. So I consulted with Mr. Waterman, who has done some work with the city. They have a geotech. He is no longer independent. He's now within the firm of CEC. That bid came back at $5,200, which would be a pass-through charge to the developer. I'm not saying that the work that they're proposing to do is excessive, but that's a lot of money for 2 core drills and a lab test. So I would like to propose the applicant secured the services of an independent geotechnical engineer, Mr. Goff. Mr. Goff has indicated that he would be willing to have the samples tested at a much lower cost, same test, same lab, in order not to visit $5,200 worth of hardship on Mr. McPherson for the test that we need. I am interested in the compaction to make sure it will hold the building he's proposing to put on it. I'm also interested in ensuring that nothing of a contaminant nature is going into the blue line stream that's located just at the bottom of that rise. So I think we discussed before that the binding agents that were used in the concrete that was used for fill was asbestos. It contained some lead and a little bit of mercury. We just need to make sure it's not going in the water. So if the planning commission is settled or is okay with approaching it using Mr. Goff rather than a clear term, we can get the same test, same function, done the same way at a much reduced rate.
And this is a third party lab.
He is. He was employed by Mr. McPherson at our insistence. So he is independent in that he will have to supply an affidavit, he will have to sign it, he'll have to stamp it. So
Are you comfortable with this?
Pardon?
Are you comfortable with this?
I am. I don't know if you remember Mr. Campbell, because I'm asking you to reach back about a decade.
No,
But we had
don't ask me
several
to do that.
issues on Old Charlotte Pike for dumping. If you'll remember, construction
Yeah.
debris was a group of truckers that were doing it. Mr. Goff performed the engineering reports for us. I have also worked with him on a project in Ashland City. I have also worked with him on a project in Nashville,
Okay.
not with him as we are partners, but I reviewed and supplied the documents. He has always been thorough in the things that I.
Okay.
So is Mr. McPherson going forward with Mr. Goff on this?
You took a vote in a motion to use an independent firm. In my opinion, he still qualifies as an independent. He is not employed by a firm by Mr. McPherson. He's a hired
Right.
contractor. Yes, sir.
I have a question. How are you going to ensure that there's no mercury or asbestos in those core samples?
Water samples will be taken from the stream, and they'll be taken from 2 locations where I observed that concrete deposited. The best test of whether or not it's entering in the stream is to test the stream. So those
So
are
it can
the-
be in the core sample, but it does, if it stays there, you're not concerned about it.
No, we're testing the dirt
You're
itself.
no, you're testing this, you told me, you just said it, you're testing the water for this.
You asked me how we would ensure it wasn't in the water stream now. That's a water sample. The state will do those for free. TDAC will do that too. We don't require him to do that. That can be done by the state lab for us, and they'll do that for free, TDAC will. I'm concerned with what's in that ground as well. So
Or
those
who's
two-
going to analyze this core sample to determine if there is something objectionable?
They send them to an independent lab, and the independent lab will furnish that report to the city.
That's only going to tell you what they see in it.
It's gonna tell us what's in that core depth that goes down about 19 feet, which is deeper than the fill that he's doing. That's kind of where we are.
If you don't look for it, you're not going to find it. That's my only point.
Pardon?
If there's something objectionable that you're not looking for,
Yes, sir.
even though it's objectionable, you're not going to find it. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
So Tom, are you just saying that if they don't test for something that we're concerned with, that we won't know if it's there? Is that what-
Exactly.
So
That's
are
all
they-
I'm saying.
Are they testing for all the things that you listed that you're concerned with?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The test is ordered in a very specific fashion. What is considered a toxic or hampering element is on a state lab list. There are 47 separate things on that list that are known to contaminate water and be difficult to clean. So when they run the spectrum test on a lab sample, they test for all of those. What we observe and what we know to be in some of the debris that was deposited there, because we know the location where it came from before it was deposited, included mercury, lead, and asbestos. So we'll have them do a full spectrum test. And then the water sample, because we've had recent rain, if we didn't collect it in a relatively short period of time for the water stream, we'll know if any of that is leaching into the water stream. But you're correct, Mr. Cullen, there's no way to ever identify everything. We went through that on Old Charlotte Pike many years ago. They did core sampling in that area for 14 months, and every lab test that came back was different. Because water table moves what's in the ground. So you're correct in your point, but at this point, that is the best analysis of what we got that we can get.
What do you need from the board?
Pardon?
What do you need from the board?
For us, it's simply, you had taken a vote that we find a third-party independent. I see Mr. Goff as independent, because he's not directly employed by Mr. McPherson. He's a contractor that was hired at our insistence.
So do you need a motion to allow Mr. McPherson to use Mr. Goff?
Mr. Goff.
Do we have- I'll make a motion to allow Mr. McPherson to use Mr. Goff's for the core drills.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you, and I think Mr. McPherson's engineer is here tonight. He had submitted a preliminary plan for the development once the rezoning second reading was done. We met with him. We brought Mr. Zimmerman from Second South Cheatham together with Public Works and myself and the building inspector to have a preliminary discussion. Some of that discussion has to do with the location of the bore under the road to access utilities for water, for sewer, that sort of thing. So I think, unless I'm mistaken, they're still in the process of working that design out with Second South Cheatham. Mr. Zimmerman gave them some good feedback. We also met with John and Public Works and determined that one sewer location, lift station, was much preferable to the other. Their original submission, they wanted to run everything relatively close together, but because we don't have lift station capacity for sewer in the location they wanted to come over, that will be moved up the road. That will be determined between him and Public Works, the best location in Point Bears, and Austin and John. The water location will be determined by Second South Cheatham, so until they get that process through with that, we're just giving you an update that the process is moving forward.
Question. Who is doing the sewers engineering now?
You'll have to be a little more specific. Austin Patterson is our wastewater
the engineering of it. Who will design the lift station and capacity and that kind of thing?
Right now it would be Neil Westerman, who is not working for himself anymore. He's working, handing off on his way to retirement for a group.
Yes, sir. So
Not comfortable with it.
that will probably, always, the sewer should be designed, any sewer and water should be designed by the holder of the utility rather than the applicant. I understand I think the final point you're making, unless I've missed something. So at this point, it may be productive for the city to explore whether or not Mr. Westerman is capable of taking that on,
Yeah,
or...
Mr. Westerman is working with us now. Once this project comes to fruition, if it does come to fruition, then we will look for an engineer to assist the town with designing the sewer.
Well, I guess it's probably more for the city commission to deal with, but I really believe sewer needs to have an engineer that they can go to at all times. And it needs to be somebody independent of the utility district.
Yes,
I
sir.
agree.
So we're all on the same page for where this development is at this moment. Okay. He needs to acquire feedback from Second South Cheater for water. I have a call into Dixon Gas. They still have not decided where they would like to have a gas line run. Electric, obviously, Mr. McPherson's contractor has indicated that Mr. McPherson wants to do underground utilities on the site, which I'm a big fan of. Just takes all those poles out of our way. We have discussed line of sight coming off the driveway. We've discussed the need to clean up the side of the road to take all those weeds and things down, because they're an eyesore right now. And we've talked about reducing, not the scale of the driveway going in, but reducing its rise so that we get a better, cleaner line of sight going towards the school. I have discussed with the contractor, Mr. McPherson's concept, how it lays on the property, and I think when you drive down Kingston Springs Road, not that it will be bad to look at, but I don't think that unless you know it's there, you'll know it's there. The way it's going to be set on the property, it's going to be somewhat back from the road. I think the design aesthetics that he sees in his head will play very well on the lay of that land and the rise and fall and the topography. So that's where we are with that project for tonight.
Okay. So item B under new business is,
Does that man have something?
sir, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to ask a question. Mr. McPherson would like to know at what point could he start bringing in dirt and bringing it up closer to final grade? And I didn't know if that was a decision that you guys made tonight, or if that was a decision that would be made after the geotech, or how you guys would want to address that.
For phase one, I think that the last time that you appeared, I apologize, may I respond to
Please,
that?
yeah.
At the last time you guys appeared, there was still soil that was being used for fill on top of phase two that you were using in phase one. So there was no way to sample or do anything for phase one. He can come in as of tonight's meeting and secure a permit to continue the fill process. So he's graduated there, as long as there's a protocol for that. And I want to make sure we're really playing, because there's been some miscommunication in the past. He cannot stage, soil, or fill on phase two until that sampling is done, because I don't want to recover the same area that we've had so much discussion about.
Exactly, yeah, we were straight on that.
So you have to stay completely off the area where the testing is going to be done, and the testing, now that they've agreed that Mr. Goff can do that, is in your court. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions about that discussion?
Anything else on the person? Okay. So item B under new business is the ordinance subdivision regulations update.
Yes, sir. Over the past more than a decade that I've worked with this planning commission off and on, there have been a number of small initiatives started driving towards a comprehensive plan for your town, which includes everything, infrastructure, economic development, and the first thing that I'd like to do is advise that in your training session that I want to schedule for November, I would like to cover that topic with you for your training that's required every year. Secondarily, now is probably the most optimum time that you're going to have to begin this process. You've made 4 starts at it and finished none of them. We have a land use plan. We have the AIA plan. You did a survey several years ago that collected some really useful data, may or may not be relevant at this juncture, it's been 5 years ago, that feed into that process. So as you're looking at Kingston Springs, within the last public meeting that we had about development in Kingston Springs, we kind of touched on how much land you have available, what the restrictors within your community are, what the limitations are. So you have kind of a limited scale of property available. Rather than respond to the next development that comes up, I would prefer to do some proactive planning, where we look at what we have available for development, discuss what's appropriate while we're trying to preserve what you already have here, and so that you don't use up what little bit of resource you have for development in doing things that don't fit what you want in your community. It's an immersive process, much like the land use plan process was. It's community driven as well. The community's invited to all the meetings. But I would like to start that process. That process in turn will allow us to start addressing the arcane regulations that you have in your zoning ordinance and your subdivision regulations.
About the beer ordinance.
They're written in a grid fashion. It's known as Euclidean zoning. You can't do that in this box, right? So everybody uses them almost across the state. I would like to see you move towards a more form-based zoning platform that takes into account what your resources and your assets are while it deals with your challenges. I've always felt that if you plan for development, by looking at your infrastructure, looking at your traffic patterns, looking at what your economic development potential is, your job pool, your housing pool, you will get a much better product than you do if you just react to what comes down the pike. So I would like for this planning commission to make a recommendation to the city commission that we start this process.
And I think this should be a top priority. I really think it's time we do something like this.
Wanted it a number of years.
Yeah, that's about it, so.
I move that you go forth and start. I move that you go forth and start the
Thank
process.
you. I'm sorry.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on this or questions? before I
Well,
take a vote?
and just to clarify, your motion is to bring this to the city commission, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is part of that to identify what parcels within the city are available for development?
Yes, sir.
That'd be top of the list then? Or- okay.
Yes, sir. We can develop the scenario, there's actually a formula for that, for what parcels may be the most appealing for development right now. We somewhat addressed a little bit of this by the overlay that we did on several parcels a year and a half ago. But it really needs to be a citywide approach, and you need to look at what your insufficiencies are, what your challenges are, as well as what your assets are, and how you can maximize those. When you piecemeal development, you end up taking what you get. When you plan development, you end up encouraging what you want. So that's the process.
Okay, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that passes as a recommendation to the city commission. So, corridor improvement update, item C under new business.
In your packet, there's a memo from Collier Engineering. Currently, the town's working with Collier Engineering and community development partners on our multimodal grant, as well as our Safe Routes to School grant. But specifically, the multimodal grant, which is on Logan Lakeland Hills Road, the TDOT has approved the right-of-way, and so they are in the right-of-way phase. We're looking for final notification of utilities to make sure that utilities are okay with their plan, and that Collier has the engineering studies from those different utilities. Once that is done, then TDOT will approve the next step, which is the final step, which is notice to proceed for construction. And then the bid-let process will take place, and hopefully they will start in the spring. Right now, they're looking to bid in late November, early December.
Collier.
Yes, Collier is. And we have a drop dead date of, I believe it's the 27th of October, 2020. So Collier is aware of that. We have a meeting with them the end of this month with Collier and with community development partners, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page with that final end date for that particular project.
The sidewalk project's on schedule.
Yes.
This is one of them.
Yes, this is one of them. The other one is Safe Routes to School, which is on schedule, and we are using for the third project, which is the acronym just skipped my mind right now.
That's okay.
But yes, the TAP grant. Sorry.
TAP, there you go.
Transportation Alternative Program grant. The TAP grant, we're using a different engineering firm. We're using Kimley Horn for that grant, and they seem to be very responsive to our requests.
Okay, thank you.
And if you look, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, one more thing. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but if you look at Thornton's, they were not required to, but they did include in their construction the sidewalk in front. So that's sort of a very small taste of what both sides of that road will look like once this project is complete.
I have a concern, looking at they have a number of pear trees. So it's pear, they're numbering, I assume they're planting line pear, aren't the pear trees?
Yeah, my guess would be
That's-
that their thought is Bradford pears.
Bradford.
Yeah, which is just as, I have that same concern.
Okay, thank you.
They're awful. Yes.
Okay, they're
Yes,
nuisance.
we'll
They're
look
not
at,
native.
yes,
They're-
we'll look at
okay,
native
thank you.
trees to go on those lots, right, or those green spaces.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. So, okay, any other questions on the quarter update? All right, and the last item under new business is the planning commission training for the November meeting.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Are you gonna do anything Tom and I haven't seen you do 2 or 3 times before?
This is a new job for you. Bless your heart, they served on the county planning commission for years.
Oh, this one here.
And here too, so they're pretty used to me. What we're covering in this particular one, Mr. Campbell, is the comprehensive planning process and what feeds into it. So it's a kind of a different world. Other than land use, all of those elements will be somewhat new to both of you from a planning perspective. You may have heard them in a commission meeting, but in a different way. And so I would like to have you tell me, do you want to do that within the planning commission meeting for November? Because we can get it done in time for the deadline in December.
I agree. Yes.
And then one other note, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Collins has joined us tonight. We met with him and Second South Cheatham and Public Works to discuss his project, and I think he has some information that he may or may not want to share with you. Tonight, he is moving forward as promised, but he's a little bit delayed, so I think he had some information that
He's got a
he would
big
like
project to bite
to
off.
share. But he had a very productive meeting with Second South. Mr. Zimmerman was able to share some information with him that was not only cost effective, but would result in a better project in the long run. In addition to that, he's now secured the services of a designer that called right before a committee meeting today, so I'll touch base with him tomorrow for the RV park as we move forward. So, if Mr. Collins has anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that may have not looked like I've been trying to move forward with things, just trying to button up some things with the change of the brand of the motel and hitting a few snags. So it's my initial 6-month ambition to get things done may have been just a little bit too ambitious. But I just want to reassure y'all that I'm still in the process of moving forward with the initial project, and with things as busy as things are getting, with me trying to do multiple things. I may forget to reach out and post updates, or anytime that y'all want to stop by and ask or take a look at something, feel free. It will just kind of keep me reminded to keep y'all updated as I proceed forward.
The only thing I have a question, this is my liberal background coming
Okay.
up. What are you gonna do with those people living up there?
Not sure. I think
I'm really
Jack at
concerned
the
about them.
I have something to add to that.
reached out. Well, Jack reached out to me. He's in the process of Jack with the ARC. Yeah. Yeah, he's been working with them to try to see who needs help and who doesn't need help. He talked to me to see if there's any big if I'm forcing them to move quickly. Until I can get more things in place, I'm kind of letting people get the help that they need until something
I'm not accusing
changes.
you of being unfair. I just
Yeah.
want to make
There's
sure.
two organizations
that those
stepping up
people
to
are
help
We
doing
that.
had a meeting last week with the churches and several of the state organizations, along with United Way, and there is a lot of, at least an attempt for some organization to help these people, and a pretty strong group of people that are really
That needs to
actively
be.
working to pursue that issue.
I've known some of those people for a lot of years.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to see them go. There's a lot of them that's been up there for 10, 15 years and longer. But it's
They have children.
from
Okay.
the reaction of the city and all that, it's time for a change.
So,
There's no, I don't question.
Yeah.
I would imagine then if somebody does depart, you're not refilling that vacancy.
Not at this time.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Any other questions then? All right, thank you all for coming. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right.
Oh, no, you missed a point there.
What did I miss, Chuck?
Other for discussion only.
Okay, Chuck, do you
I
have
want to
any?
backtrack.
Okay,
You mentioned the Sunoco station needing a traffic study.
Yes, sir.
Why?
Because they're a commercial outlet with an 85-person seat, they're on a state road and it's required by our ordinance.
Okay, that's fine, but Thornton's just did a traffic study over there. Why are we forcing him to do something that's going to cost you money when you've had all these studies done already? Thornton's right across the road and had a study done.
He's able to use it.
He was provided with Thornton study and McPherson study to help him, I think, in the process. So.
The traffic study.
All right, explain to me how that's going to help you.
The traffic study is required for every commercial development that's adjacent to that corridor. That's been in your regulation for years. Thornton's conducted a study for their section on their side of the road, internalizing their traffic with the impact from their location to the on-ramp to the interstate. Their trucks don't come to Kingston Springs or further down the road. Every location has to be treated exactly the same way. We don't have the ability to pick and choose who we want to comply with the regulations or not comply. So we've taken every and because it's contributing, it's an 85-seat restaurant, so it's contributing traffic to the road with the addition of
But,
a restaurant.
okay, that brings up what prompted the question.
Yes, sir.
The restaurant's not there right now, so any traffic count you take is not going to show you what the traffic's going to be when the restaurant's open.
While I grasp the concept that you're conveying, Mr. Slater, neither was the Thornton's location there when they did the traffic study. They calculated based on the tolerance of the location. The tolerance of his location, he's expressed as 85 seats. So traffic studies are always done with a maximum impact to that. So he will take the data from the TPR that we furnished to him, the data from Mr. McPherson's, also not there, apartment complexes of the traffic study, internalize that data along with the 85 potential vehicles that he may be contributing. Nobody ever contributes maximum all at one time, but that's what the state requires for a traffic study. It's what the ASHTO standards require for a traffic study. The maximum load potential at peak hour to see how traffic will function. That has been required of every single commercial location in Kingston Springs that was built. It's required of this applicant exactly. the same.
And I've always thought it was a waste of time. When you have somebody doing a traffic study in one spot, is that gonna affect that corridor? Why do you need more traffic studies?
Because he's contributing to the traffic volume on an interstate access location that's already rated an F. We don't have any flexibility with that. TDOT has rated the on-ramp to I-40 on Ruben Hills Road as an F, which is, just like in grade school, the worst grade that you could possibly get. So we don't have the latitude or the flexibility to excuse one applicant as opposed to another. When they're contributing traffic volume, they have to do the study.
I guess that brings up one other thing. I really think that the city mayor ought to be talking to T-Dot about a life
Yes, sir.
and in the sexual interest.
I would agree with you, Mr. Campbell, in that, as you remember back to the Thornton's project, they at first pitched that they would get a red line. TDOT controls everything on that road. They control, it's a state road. They control what traffic studies are required, when they're needed. That is a state requirement that we don't have any control over. So we've lessened the burden on every one of our applicants, regardless of who they were, as they came along by giving them all the data that we have at our disposal. We're not required to do that. We do that to lessen the cost for them. So by furnishing Mr. McPherson's study, which also takes in Kingston Springs Road, and furnishing him with the Thornton study, we have greatly reduced the amount of work necessary to produce the study. That's the only option that we have available to assist the applicant.
Like I said, I still can't comprehend how, if the business is not open, how you can count cars and say they might go into that parking lot.
That's what they do.
Formula is established by traffic engineering standards that ASHTO designs and the TDOT adopted. So those standards inform the applicant. It's almost like a form process that you fill out, much as you do when you want to apply for a driver's license or something. You just fill out a form. Once you enter the data, there is a program within the software that runs it and tells you what the peak hour traffic is in the morning, peak hour traffic in the afternoon, and tells you whether or not you have enough length on that corridor to stack that number of vehicles coming out of a lot in conjunction with other traffic, when school's letting out, when other things are occurring. That's the purpose of the study. Thornton's traffic counts revealed that they contributed at peak hour 12 vehicles an hour that were cars. 7, remember, trucks an hour for trucks. They have less parking availability for their store, their gas pumps, and their truck bays than the restaurant and the convenience store across the street is being proposed. So again, while it may not be as informative as we would like it to be because it's not a huge study area, it helps us to inform TDOT and it helps us to further the cause of traffic improvements along that corridor. Without these studies, that will never happen.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
The TDOT added another lane to I-40 at 182.
Yes, sir.
Was that to allow for incoming, traffic accessing I-40 from Highway 96? Why was it just put there in that for a mile or less? Third lane.
Because of the
Many areas, and I can't
acceleration.
speak specifically to that because we would need to see the TPR for that particular lane width before I can answer that question. But as another example, north of Pleasant View, where the Lowe's went in, they expanded and doubled the access onto I-24 in order to accommodate the additional truck traffic
The
that's
semis.
coming out of that distribution center.
Where you're
So
talking
if you
about, they
don't
added a
collect
lane
the
from
traffic
Turnbull
data
Creek over
based
the
on
hill.
real impact, all we can do on that process.
To Highway 96.
And it's been required,
What reason?
I can't
Get the trucks up the hill, they've done it on every hill.
This commission
here.
can't say, I want Joe to do it, but I don't want Bob. That's just not how
Well, it is a
regulations
big
work.
deal.
So,
What are you talking about?
Come all clean up.
I'm just
before you
wondering,
go into-
basically, whether that could be done to solve the problem here, getting onto interstate.
it is one alternative that I think has been looked at by TDOT. At this point, with the, and to somewhat answer Mr. Slater, no traffic study as of yet has met the warrant, and warrant's what's called threshold in traffic studies, has met the threshold for improvements. So if we don't continue to require these and supply them, the improvements will never come. They have to be backed up by hard data. Sometimes, like back in the day, you can go into a room with a traffic engineer from TDOT and work something out. Those days are long gone. It's all based on hard data now. So the data is collected from every traffic study, every one informs the one in front of it. And so we've done everything we can to accommodate the applicant and give him the data that we have at our disposal.
Any other questions? Okay. We have a motion on the floor to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.